Good morning, everybody. It's working now. So, if everyone's ready, we're going to start this presentation now. My name's Sarah Sturgis, Agency Director at SMRS, and I'm going to be presenting to you for about 10 minutes, first of all, and then I'm going to hand you over to Claire Ronan, who is from Cambion Group, and she'll take you through the case study that we want to present today. Apologies for the lighting. It is really, really strong in our eyes, so if we're squinting a little bit, apologies in advance. So first of all, what I just wanted to do was to explain who we are at SMRS. So first of all, we're an employer marketing business, and the role that we play with organisations is to develop their employer brands. So uncovering the culture of an organisation, then uncovering and articulating their employer value proposition, and then marketing that employer value proposition so that you can attract and retain the people that you need for your particular organisation. We've been working in employer branding now for many years, and over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, we've developed probably about 25 employer brands for organisations. And when I was looking at the particular subject area for this presentation today, one of the things that really struck me was a lot of those employer brands started for blue chip organisations who you would probably have all heard of, quite often retailers, and it was often people who had brands that were very well known. However, over the last year or two, what we've noticed is that lots more charities, public sector organisations, and then also SMEs have started investing in employer branding. So what I wanted to do was have a look at why that has happened, what that shift has been, and then what we're also going to do is give you quite a lot of information about why that's happened over those years. The first thing, though, is really make sure that everyone is fully aware of what an employer brand is. This is our explanation of an employer brand. So it's what people think and feel about your organisation as a place to work. It's your reputation, and it's also what you offer to your people. If you think personally about the organisation that you work for right now, and you ask yourself a number of questions. So, what attracted you to the organisation that you work for? What keeps you there? And what would you say to people about who might be considering joining you? If you ask yourself those few questions and then maybe go out into your business and ask another 10 people, you'll find that there's a lot of commonality. But you'll also find that there are differences because people will talk about what's most important to them. Now, developing a clear employer value proposition means that it's really important to find the common ground across everybody, and they're the things that you then take out into the market. What I would say, though, if you've thought about those questions, is that you will already have an employer brand. So don't think that, we can't do X, Y, or Z because we don't have an employer brand. You do have one. The challenge is it telling people exactly what you want it to do? So what we look at is very much where are you now with your own employer brand? So what you say to people externally and internally, is that true to who you are as an organisation and where you're heading? Does it mean something to the people that you already have in the business? Or are you actually selling something externally to people, and then when they come into your organisation, it doesn't connect? It's really important that all of these things align. Now, many of you may well be thinking about building a business case for employer branding. Here's some stats that are very relevant for recruiters in particular, because these stats show some of the different reasons why employer branding is important. So things like investing in your employer brand can really increase the quality of the candidates that you are able to then bring into your organisation. Some people think that employer branding can be costly and something that you can't afford. My challenge back on that is usually that you are probably spending on agency hires because you don't have a clear a clear employer brand. And if you can articulate that employer brand much better externally, you will hire people directly rather than through agencies. So there are definitely cost advantages. The other thing to think about as well is that attrition and attraction go hand in hand. So an employer brand can also help reduce your staff turnover, and that in turn will mean that as recruiters, it's less of a challenge to find the people that you need. One of the things that we've also been taking a look at more closely is what I said at the beginning around the fact that it was many big organisations that started with employer branding. What we have uncovered really is that a company who is a known brand, who already invests in their marketing, often also invest in their employer brands because they naturally see it as another facet of marketing. And ultimately, this means that those brands find it easier to attract the people that they want to hire. So I'm sure you all will have heard lots about Google's employer brand. And it's interesting, there's some great stuff online that you might want to read about Google. One of the posts I was taking a look at was the 6 reasons why Google might not be right for you. And what I think is interesting about that is their employer brand is so strong, so many people want to work there. They actually receive 2 million applications each year to work for Google. It's apparently harder to get in there than it is Harvard. So what's interesting about organisations like that is their challenges are completely different. The challenges that they have are very much around things like needing to attract a certain culture fit, or attract people to balance the demographics within their organisation, or in fact reduce the volume of applications. Does anyone in this room have that problem? Show of hands? Yeah, 1. So only 1 person in this room has that issue with overpopularity of employer brand. So one of the other things I've taken a look at as well is that those businesses in the least attractive sector struggle more and invest less in their employer brands on average. The other issue is that small businesses suffer from skills shortages. So if a large employer is attracting people, they might have 50, 100 vacancies. A small organisation might have a handful. So the challenge there is significant. And also what we see is that small businesses suffer significantly more with skill shortages than large businesses. So when I'm talking today about the challenging sectors for employer branding, the challenge is that there are a lot of people who are focusing on their employer brands because they are really struggling to get the talent that they need. And that's one of the underlying issues that we're addressing. One of the other things I wanted to show you as well is this chart. So in effect, who works in, just really quick show of hands, who works in construction? Utilities? Transport and storage? Manufacturing? Education? So you've all got your work cut out, unfortunately. I'm going to do a small feature on some of these areas as well, which will hopefully help. But one of the things that I wanted to kind of highlight next is that ultimately the causes of this shortage in skills is really quite an interesting one. One of the reasons is the growth is outstripping supply. So who talks within their organisations at the moment about needing more tech people, more digital, more IT people? So you're all competing against each other for those skills. We can't bring in enough people into the industries to fill all of those roles. And the demand in IT is just seemingly limitless at the moment. The other thing that's interesting is demographic shifts. So birth rates are declining. Anyone suffering from an older population? So real challenges with how you can engage your older population in your employer brand to get them to take part in developing younger people, apprentices, etc. The other thing is the decline in traditional industrial skills. So there's so much out there about generational research. The example I would probably use around this area is something personal to me, because I think it resonates really well. I've got a 7-year-old son who wants to be a YouTube gamer when he grows up. He's adamant that is what he's going to be. And who am I as a mother to put him off doing that? His granddad wanted to be a plumber or an electrician. We have such different expectations now of the roles that young people are going to be going into, and we're not filling or backfilling these skills that we're losing. There's also a social shift because standard of living is increasing. Fewer and fewer people are willing to do roles that are on national minimum wage. Young people often take those roles. Older, semi-retired people often take those roles as well. But a huge part of those jobs are now being delivered by overseas workers on a permanent or temporary or seasonal basis. So we're seeing big, big shifts. So all of this really leads to the fact that because of this skills shortage, because people are thinking more about how they can differentiate themselves and answering some of these challenges that are relevant only to the industry that you're working in, employer branding is becoming more and more popular. I can happily go through many different areas of research, but in the interest of time, I've just picked 3 today, and because of the show of hands, I know some relate to some of you. There's quite a lot of information on each of these research slides, so I'm going to flick through them quite quickly. But if anyone wants any detailed case studies or research for your particular sector, feel free to come and chat to me after, or come and find us on our stand, and we'll happily share that. So firstly, construction. There's a lot going on in construction. STEM, issues around STEM shortages, not enough females, and ultimately there is a real need to bring more school kids into construction, both males and females. So there's loads of information that supports a case for investing in employer branding to improve how you're hiring it into construction at the moment. Not enough females studying, and also it's not getting better. So that stat around only 20% of A-level physics students are girls, and it's not changed in 25 years. There's some really nice examples that would be worth you taking a look at. So this is the new career site for Balfour Beatty, which we launched a couple of weeks ago. All of their people are used throughout their employer brand, their stories are there, and they focus on 3 key things. One is scarce skills, so all of their employer branding is focused on the people they can't find. Digital transformation, and also internal mobility. Within that is naturally a focus on women and certain target audiences. So does anyone try and reach ex-military? Yeah, so that's another area that now within Balfour Beatty's career site has a specific area to address. So all of these things are coming out really strongly in terms of their employer brand. A much smaller company, so Balfour Beatty are, I believe, 4 times as large as Volker Wessels, but Volker Wessels actually have half as many hiring needs. So in effect, that's showing how difficult they're finding it to hire the people that they need. Still investing in their employer brand, though, for similar reasons to Balfour Beatty. The next area is technology. So at the moment, pretty much every business is going through some form of digital transformation. Technology skills are just not there as much as we need them to meet that demand. Interestingly as well, the cost of people in this particular area is becoming higher and higher, and where contractors are used, it goes even higher. So they command, £10,000 more on average than people with at similar levels in other organisations. Interestingly though, it is one area where the BAME representation is very strong in tech, So the diversity issue is less about encouraging people from black and ethnic minorities, but it is heavily about female. I don't know a client who's not looking at tech who isn't thinking about women in tech. Very, very common. So it's not just tech companies, though, who are hiring tech people. So EasyJet is certainly not the only retailer to invest, but they have looked very specifically at how they can address within their employer brand attracting this audience who might not naturally think of EasyJet as a tech place to work. Yes, they'll think of them naturally for cabin crew, for pilots, but not for tech roles. And this is one of the examples of a campaign that's been hugely successful for Balfour Beatty, where they brought their own tech people into that particular campaign. Conscious of time, so I'm going to really quickly take you through health and social work because it aligns nicely into what Claire's going to be talking about next. So within this area, there's huge concerns around Brexit because so many people are filling roles, particularly within nursing and within healthcare, who are from overseas. The other thing as well is that there's a real connection between engagement and keeping the people that you have versus attracting people into this sector. So just stats around, in the NHS, EU leavers outweighed joiners for the first time in 5 years, so people are leaving. It's also the first year, I believe, that bursaries for nursing students have now been replaced by loans, so fewer people will be going into that area. And 20,000 vacant nursing posts across the NHS in 2017. So it's a really challenging area. But people aren't just sitting back and saying, you know, this is a problem, we can't do anything about it. There is a real ability to make a change. And it was great to see London North West Healthcare invest in their employer brand to compete for talent. This is one of their visuals that was used, and they adopted the headline of wholehearted, not faint-hearted, to really get across the difficulty, the complexity, but also it's not a role that's easy, but you know, if people are going to stick at it, then they need the right calibre and the right capability within people from the beginning. They actually, as a result of this employer brand development, they had a 400% increase in applications in some areas. Their vacancy levels are now down to 8%. So it's shown a massive shift. And what the feedback that we've had around this is it's really got people involved and engaged within the business. It's not just for attraction. And the last one, the employer brand work for MenCap, just showing that a charity who actually took a big chunk of their job board attraction spend to invest in employer branding so they could afford to do this. Their attrition was so high that they needed to make sure they were getting the right people with the grit and determination to be able to do that job well. So that's a really quick run through of some of those shortage areas. There are many more. I think one of the things that I would just finish on before I hand over to Claire is the fact that in all of those sectors, there are a lot of things that can be done to reposition you as an attractive employer. It is about getting your story out there. And I think, as Claire's going to take you through now, here's a lovely example of how Cambion have done that in more detail.
Thanks, Sarah. Good morning. Oh, very bright. Just thank you, Sarah, for that introduction. I'm Gen X, so it's a bit of paper we scribble on, so perhaps alluding to a little bit of Sarah's generational stuff. I'm Claire Ronan. I am the head of shared service at Cambion. We look after recruitment and our onboarding and our transactional HR for the organisation. I've got two colleagues here, Nicole and Laura, who work with me, which is lovely to see, so thank you for coming. Oh, wrong way. The Cambion Group is one of the UK's leading specialist education and behavioural health service providers. We look after 2,100 children. We employ around 4,000 people. And those people are employed, in the majority of them, across around 225 sites, which include residential children's homes, specialist schools, and a fostering operation. Those are the numbers, but the real story of what we do is what we need to tell. In the words of one of our residential care workers, quite simply, no one else does what we do. We are the last hope for a lot of kids. Just to put a bit of context around what we do. And we needed to shift away with our attraction strategy from what we had been previously doing. The bulk of our recruitment is residential care workers and home managers for our residential homes, support workers and academic staff for our schools, and a full range of multidisciplinary staff for our specialist therapy teams. Our candidates are hard to find in very tricky locations, very varied in quality, always looking across many sectors, and very salary sensitive. So we compete with hospitality, we compete with retail, we compete with lots of people who can offer something at that level in the marketplace. Our staff are not here to cure or fix our young people. It's about helping them along their way towards a better life. An example might be to support a non-verbal child with severe autism who wouldn't leave the minibus that she had arrived to her new school in for 3 days, and now feels at ease to move around the school, to talk to visitors, and shows an obvious pride in the way she's settled. We listened to a young person traumatized by abuse and heard her advice about her Zoopla search that she'd done to find a new care home. And we took the advice, and Cambion bought one of those properties so that she could shift into something that felt like home. Unfortunately, our brand awareness has been sorely lacking. In spite of the great work that we do, no one really beyond our sector had ever heard of us. I hadn't heard before I joined. And even those who work for Cambion, had been there a while, hadn't seen a change in that brand awareness at all. The stark lack of self-promotion really impacted on our ability to attract candidates. We're plagued by negative press. Glassdoor, Indeed, the TV and the press will jump on our activity, and it makes it very difficult to promote a positive impact. In a noisy market, our employer brand has to be about finding the purpose in the roles we offer and connecting people to that. It's emotional, and a little bit like the NHS, it's not for the faint-hearted. And actually, that's why I joined. So how do we address this? We work with SMRS to understand a little bit more about our culture. We talked from the senior leaders in the organisation to care workers on the ground working day in, day out with our young people. And we asked them, why did they join? Why do they stay? The challenges and victories that they experience every day, and what sort of people they felt would succeed at Cambion. And from all our conversations, we generated 6 themes that you can see here. Intense pride, it's what's inside that counts. You're part of a journey, progress that means more. This is emotional, and this is amazing. Just to focus on 2 of these. This is emotional. Our feedback told us that to work with our young people, emotional intelligence is vital. You will be dealing with damaged young people who may be volatile. Reading situations and responding properly is key, and it's not easy, but the days you win will mean so much more. And also, they told us, this is amazing. We need to celebrate our staff. No one else does what we do. We step up for these young people where no one else can or will, and our successes, while hard fought, are phenomenal. As one care worker put it, I'm not here for the money. This has to be a passion. If I was doing this for the money, I'd go to Aldi, they pay way more. And we shared these 6 themes back to the operation, who told us that they absolutely resonated. No one had ever played that back to us in that way before. Which led us to our creative campaign. The creative team at SMRS came up with 4 different concepts based on all of that research that we'd done. And to be honest, we really struggled to choose one from the themes that had emerged. But we landed on broken words to convey the challenge and the rewards of the work that we offer. It uses spliced, interrupted words, which you'll see, to convey the complexity of the people that we deal with and the issues at hand. Calls for a particularly perceptive type of person to read deeper into who they truly are. And the campaign is designed to create an emotional response, showing how the right combination of compassion and perception can break down some of those barriers. We think it's really powerful stuff. We have to be super careful with our images. We can't use any pictures of our children or young people, so the images were carefully selected from a curated choice. We need to make a quick emotional impact in a crowded market for our type of audience to reach the candidates who feel the right connection to our young people and to appeal to their emotions without sugarcoating the challenge. To meet the urgent need to be out and active in the marketplace for all the reasons that Sarah talked about earlier, we're working behind the scenes on developing a full website, but we created some interim landing pages based on our new creative and key messaging, as well as a quick data capture for candidates to complete while they're on the move. We've also started work on a blended media campaign, managed media, to direct people towards our creative, and we needed it to be fully optimized to make sure that candidates could apply quickly and easily whilst conforming to our complicated and detailed safeguarding and Ofsted requirements. Sarah, do you want to jump in now, or shall I carry on? I can do that one, thank you. Our next steps are our ongoing media campaign to attract more passive and relevant candidates. So we've done a big audience mapping exercise where we can target our managed media to candidates who have a propensity to work with Cambion. We've got bespoke photography and video content to capture the essence of who we are, as well as the benefits and rewards of the role. So we'll be developing a lot of work with our care workers and support workers to talk about what they do, to get the message across and to persuade people to look at us, and building on our new careers site, as I mentioned. So we're in the early stages of what we're doing. We think that we love this creative. It's already made an impact, and we know that what we do is difficult. We recruit in a difficult market, but we needed that cut through to create an impact, and we really feel this is making a difference already.
So just to finish off, some final thoughts from Claire and I. The first would be, firstly, if you're thinking about employer branding, understand the market that you're operating on, because the objectives that you set for your employer brand should actually align very closely to what the challenges and the problems are. I think ultimately as well, make sure you've got measures, because an employer brand shouldn't be something where you just have a go at something without actually thinking about what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to change. Stakeholders are incredibly important. Mapping out your journey and knowing where you're heading is equally important. And I think, see employer branding as a way of working, not just a project that you're going to do over a 2 or a 3 month period. So really think about the fact of the market you're in. It will be a challenge, but everyone can make a difference. There are a lot of small steps that you can take to really help balance out that skills deficit and attract better and keep the people you have. Conscious of time, but I'm not sure if we've got time for questions.